You've been blessed with the gift of magic. You know how to cast spells. But will that help you gain the fabled talisman and take control of the crown of command? Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyter, and today, yes, we are taking a look at Talisman, but another character guide, and this time it's the magical Prophetess. Just what are the best ways to use her abilities, and will she succeed every time that you play her? Let's find out. The Prophetess. Just what are her special abilities and how can you best utilise them? Now, before we go any further, I will say that the Prophetess is probably one of my favourite characters from the base game. That and the Sorceress, which we have done a character guide to as well. I think that was our first one because it was pretty much, the Sorceress is pretty much my favourite. And I'm starting to think that maybe the characters that actually have magic and have spells at the beginning of the game obviously do have a slight advantage, but it is how you use those spells. So the Prophetess, yes, she starts in the chapel. Her alignment is good, as you can imagine if she starts in the chapel. Her strength is 2, craft is 4, life's 4, and fate 2. Special abilities. 1, you begin the game with 1 spell. 2, during the game, you always have at least 1 spell. And then it says in brackets, gain a spell each time you cast your last spell, just to make it really clear. Number 3, whenever you have to draw adventure cards, you may discard 1 card of your choice that you do not wish to encounter and draw 1 more card to replace it, which you must encounter. And number 4, at any time during the game, you may look at the spell cards held by other characters. So, as you've probably guessed, the Prophetess's strength does lie in spells and how you use them, because 3 of her 4 special abilities all involve spells. And since you always have at least 1 spell, you can actually use them quite liberally during the game. So let's take a closer look at the special abilities. So the first one is you begin this game with 1 spell. Like the Sorceress, she also starts with 1 spell, but unlike the Sorceress, you will always have at least 1 spell during the game due to your other special ability. So, as I said before, you can be a little bit more gun-ho, or should that be spell-ho, with your casting abilities. You just, once you cast 1, you automatically get another one, and that is really valuable. Number 2, during the game, you always have at least 1 spell, as we mentioned. So you gain each time you cast a spell, you will gain another one from the spell deck. And yeah, that is fairly straightforward. And even if it's on another player's turn, because obviously some spells you can cast on other players' turns, you will then automatically get it. Your craft obviously have to allow it, but because your starting craft will always let you have 1 spell, and you can never go below your starting craft, then you will always have 1 spell during the game. So if you want to use the new spell straight away, so say you cast 1 and then you get another spell and it allows you to cast that new spell, you can also cast that as well. So that becomes really powerful when you can do combinations of spell casting. And of course you can have more than 1 spell if your craft allows it. There is a spell casting chart that tells you how many spells you can have depending on your craft in the main base game rulebook. And number 3, her special ability number 3. Whenever you have to draw an adventure card or cards, you may discard one of them that you do not want to encounter to draw 1 more card to replace it. Then you must encounter it. Again, fairly straightforward instruction. After you've drawn an adventure card, and that does include any of the expansion adventure cards, because they don't call them, like say you're playing with the dungeon expansion. The dungeon is actually called like the dungeon adventure card. So it's the similar thing. So if you're asked to draw a dungeon card, you can discard 1 more dungeon card to then encounter the one that you've just replaced it with. Does that make sense? Anyway, you must encounter the one that you replace it with though. If you're drawing multiple cards, you can decide which one you want to discard, and again you draw another one to replace it. And then obviously you encounter them with the number order as per the normal rules. So obviously if you land on the runes, The space always says that you draw 2 cards, unless there are cards on there already. But if you are drawing the 2 cards, you can look at them both and then decide if you want to encounter them both or to discard one, get another one, and you must then encounter that one. And that is hugely advantageous, because obviously if you've picked, 2 cards, or even if you pick 1 card and it's a dragon of strength 7 and your strength, and it's right at the beginning of the game, then of course you're not going to encounter it if you can't, you just know you're not going to defeat it. So to discard that is hugely powerful, because the next card might be a bag of gold. So fantastic ability to have. And it's one of those abilities that I find, it really can get you out of a pickle, especially at the early start of the game. So what I would recommend is cast your spells as liberally as you can, because obviously you're going to get another one, and it really helps at the beginning game to do that. I think a lot of the special abilities for the characters really come into their own. They're more powerful at the beginning of the game, because obviously no other characters really leveled up. You haven't leveled up either. But obviously if you're holding on to your spells, then that's kind of a waste of your special ability. So if you can get rid of them quickly to your advantage, then why not do so? Especially, and again, what I would say is, especially using the adventure deck, because I would go for trying to draw as many of those cards as possible, because you've got a sort of get out of jail free card, because you can discard one of the cards. So definitely use your spells liberally, and also try to draw as many cards. Try to go to as many spaces as you can, certainly in the early part of the game, to then draw as many cards, because then you can discard them if you don't want them. And that is a great way to get through the deck, to try and find the sword, magical items, magical objects, useful followers. They're always good to have. So, you want to get rid of the baddies and get all the loot and equipment to help you power up, to then become powerful, to then you don't have to start discarding some of the more tougher enemies. And number 4, at any time during the game you may look at spell cards held by other characters. Now once again, that is a very straightforward, very clear to understand that rule. You basically can just look at any spell that's been held face down, because all spells are secret, remember, face down from any other character. And that's hugely advantageous, because then you kind of think, well, okay, he's got a spell that can take an object off of another character. Let's use that as an example. And you could then sort of go, well, obviously, I know that there's a spell called Counterspell that can rebuttal that. It basically reverses that spell. That means that if he played that on you, or she played that on you, then you can cast that spell, and you'll be able to take an object off that person. So whatever that spell does to you, it reverses it to put it back onto them. So if you do happen to come across that spell, the counter spell, you might want to keep hold of that one for a while and decide, well, look, one player has a really powerful spell, I'm going to keep hold of that. So maybe you would take a hit from another player, because you know that another player has a more powerful spell. So it's hugely advantageous to actually be able to see the spells at any time. So as soon as they've cast one, and if they get another spell at any point during the game, you can just go, okay, you've had a look at it, I want to have a look at it. So again, hugely advantageous. The downside to the Prophetess? Well, I've never really found too much of a downside. I guess her fate isn't too high. It's low at 2. But the fact that she always has spells, at least one, more than makes up for the lack of fate. I mean, you can obviously gain more fate. You don't just stick at your current starting value. So you can actually go to places to increase your fate. So really, for me, that's the only downside. The Prophetess is very powerful because of this spell ability and the fact you can discard adventure cards. So favourable places for good characters. In the outer region, you want to be going to the chapel. If you're good, you can either heal up to your life value, you can't go over it, and that's for free. Or you can pray. 1 to 4 is ignored. 5 is gain a spell. 5 is gain a life. 6 is gain a spell. So obviously, it's all good there. If you're good, it's all good. Soul good, man, at the chapel. Crags. Go to the Crags. You roll 1 die. If you roll a 6, a barbarian leads you out. You gain 1 strength. And you can lose your next turn in the Crags. You can get attacked by a spirit with craft 4, but obviously craft 4 is not too powerful. Also, visit the forest, because again, you roll 1 die. If you get a 6, you can, it says a ranger, guide you out and you gain 1 craft. So those are really good ways to level up fairly quickly without too much hassle. Obviously, if you've got fate, then you can re-roll the die. So if you rolled a 4 or 5 and there's no effect, you could re-roll again. So you get 2 bites of the apple or cherry. Apple, cherry, whichever you prefer. Visit the city, because you can then go to the Enchantress. You can gain craft or strength. You roll a die, and the odds are pretty good. Well, they're 50-50 really. 1, you are turned into a tiny little slimy little toad for 3 turns. 2, lose a strength. 3, lose a craft. 4, gain a craft. 5, gain a strength. 6, gain a spell. Now, if you go there with pretty early on in the game and you've not leveled up any of your craft or strength, then you can't lose the craft or strength because you can't go below your starting quota. So really, 3 and 4, 2 and 3, lose 1 strength and lose 1 craft, aren't effective. The one you have to watch out for is being a toad. But if it's early on and you've not got many objects, then that isn't too bad. It's when you've powered up and you've got loads of objects, loads of followers, and you become a toad, that's when you're in trouble. So you can gain a spell if you go there. 5 here, number 5. So there's quite a few good places to go. Ruins and Oasis. Now draw 2 adventure cards on 1 go. If you're trying to draw lots of adventure cards, which you can do because you can discard one of them, go to these spaces especially. You can always discard one that you don't like the look of. So if you go to spaces that are drawing 2 at a time, then obviously you're doubling your chances of getting better equipment and money and all those good stuff. And Hidden Valley, that is draw 3 adventure cards, and it's the same as the runes and the Oasis, but even better because you get an extra card. And remember, again, you can discard one and get it replaced. Places on the board to avoid: the outer region, graveyard. If you're good, you will lose a life automatically. Never go to the graveyard. Middle region, there's no real places to avoid if you're a good player, good character. So obviously, but you want to make sure that you don't want to get caught out of the desert. That just goes for general gameplay anyway. So make sure you have a water bottle or some way of avoiding losing a life if you get caught there. The best route to go to the inner region, you're more likely going to go to the craft route, because you start, that's your starting higher value is a 4. But equally, you do need to build up your strength as well. So you might want to concentrate on building your craft though, because you're already starting on 4. As I say, I would still always try and build up your strength. But to go the craft route is, I call it the craft route, it's the mines first, which means you roll 3 die, and you subtract your craft from the total to move directly to, and then whatever the result is. So if you've got a 0, the mines, you stay where you are. 1 is Plane of Peril, 2 to 3 is Portal of Power, 4 to 5 is Warlock's Cave, and 6 plus is a Tavern. That boots you all the way back out to the outer region. So you want to build up your craft as high as possible, because you're going to be rolling 3 dice and then subtracting. Then the next one, obviously you'll get through that, hopefully, is the Vampire's Tower. Suffer blood loss. Roll 1 die to determine how many lives the vampire takes. You can discard the number of followers to avoid this loss of life. So obviously during the game you'll be picking up followers, hopefully, so they always keep on to followers, even if you feel like they're not that useful, because if you go the Vampire's Tower way, you can just go, well, I'm not going to suffer life, I'm going to push my follower into the vampire's way to substitute you losing a life. It's a bit callous, but then again, you're after the crown of command. These things have to be done. So 1 to 2, if you roll a 1 to 2, you lose 1 life. 3 to 4, you lose 2 lives. 5 to 6, lose 3 lives. So again, I would make sure you go in with at least 4 lives when you start going into the inner region. Pits is the next one. Fight the pit fiends. You roll 1 die to fight that many pit fiends with strength 4 each one. You fight them one by one until you are defeated or all the pit fiends are defeated. And then you move after that into the Valley of Fire, which obviously you need a talisman for. So yes, again, this is what I'm saying. It's not purely craft this way, which is a bit weird, because if you go the other way, it's all strength or luck. There's no craft involved, so I don't know why this is slightly unbalanced. But so you do need a bit of strength. But obviously you're rolling 1 die, and that's how many pit fiends of strength 4. So by then you should have at least strength 8. You shouldn't find them too difficult to actually defeat. So a quick recap then. Use your spells as much as you can, when you can. as you always will have at least one. Plus, this means you can burn through the spell deck to get to the more powerful spells as well, because there are some spells, you know, will aid you better than other spells as well. Obviously, some spells are, you know, it might be the circumstance doesn't actually warrant you using a spell, but I would just get rid of it as soon as you can. If it's useless, just get rid of it, because you'll always have one. Draw as many adventure cards as you can, because you always have the chance to discard the one you don't want and get it replaced, but then you have to encounter it. But that is so powerful, because sometimes you don't want the hag to slow you down. And number 3, keep checking what other players' spells are. Use that knowledge to your advantage. Obviously, if you forget what the spells are, look at them again. You can look at them at any point during the game, especially later on, because they're going to be gaining more craft. They might have 3 or 4 spells, so therefore always have that as your advantage. And visit the chapel to replenish lives, the crags to gain strength, and the forest to gain craft. And go the mine route to the inner region. And hopefully you will have success and claim that crown of command if you are the Prophetess. The Prophetess, yes, possibly one of my favourite base game characters, maybe one of my favourite all-time characters. Maybe that is another episode. My top 10 characters of Talisman using all the expansions, because we have done all the expansion reviews, so check them out. We've done the base game, we've done the Cataclysm, we've done all the expansions that are currently available, even the little mini ones, so check those out. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, we do have lots of other character guides as well, so we are steadily going through the whole base game, and then once we do the base game characters, we'll be tackling all the expansion ones. I forgot the word there for a second. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, spread the word of the imp. Remember to keep it unreal, especially if you cast spells.